multi-purpose fire extinguisher. And the reason why it's multi-purpose is because it can be used on 3 types of fires, A, B, and C. Henceforth, that's why it's called an ABC fire extinguisher. Okay? So your Class A fires is pretty much anything that's going to produce an ash, such as paper products, wood, plastics, and rubber somehow is also classified into the alpha classification. Somebody get paid a lot more money than me makes that determination. That's way up there, outside of the Air Force. Your Class Bravo type classifications is like your flammable liquids, gasoline, certain paints, aerosol cans, anything that falls in that flammable. And your Class Charlies are your electrical stuff, computers, a microwave. But the thing with Class Charlie is if you had an electrical fire, once you secure the power source to that component, it downgrades and becomes an alpha fire. All right? Can't tell you the specific details of why that happens. It's just how it happens because, of course, once you secure the power source, you don't have no electrical current. The contents of the extinguisher, it's a powder. Okay? It's a dry chemical powder. So it has very minimal health effects if you accidentally shoot it in the wrong direction and it comes back and hits you and you inhale it. All right? If you're familiar with any like hazmats, where you have like a diamond placard that tells you health hazards, flammability hazards, whether it's a corrosive or an oxidizer and things like that, radioactivity hazards. One is being the lowest hazard, so this is like labeled as a 1 health hazard. All right, 4 is the highest hazard of all those contents. So if you happen to use this outside for an outside fire, something that's pretty small, make sure you have the wind at your back, so it's not coming. The powder is not coming back at you. All right, but that'll be more just detailed discussed as far as how you use it. So on the fire extinguisher itself, right here, of course, it says ABC right here. And then right down here at the bottom, it's got like little pictures for A, B, and C. So like A, it shows like a trash can and like a campfire, then a gasoline can for your Bravo, and an electrical plug and outlet for Charlie's. All right. So as a safety rep / facility manager, okay, one of your responsibilities is to inspect this once a month. Okay. Now, while inspecting it, there are like 4 or 5 things that you need to check. The very first thing is you're going to check the pressure gauge. All right. You'll see there's a little green zone right here. You want to make sure the yellow needle, is within that green zone. Now, depending on where the extinguisher is located, it may be just a tad to the left of the green or just a tad to the right of the green. That is due to atmospheric pressurization. All right. Okay. So if it's borderline, it's nothing to worry about. But if that needle is buried all the way down to the left side, which is considered undercharge, that's a problem, and this extinguisher will have to be taken in for servicing. And I'll discuss that also a little bit later. If it's overcharged, I have not personally in my 12 years of doing this job seen an overcharged fire extinguisher, but if it does get extremely overcharged, it could be because it's outside, extreme heat conditions, and it may just do that. But I've never heard of such a thing in my 12 years. And hopefully it will never happen in another 8. So we've checked the gauge, we're good. Next thing you need to do is check the pin. Okay, what this pin does, it prevents anybody from squeezing this handle and discharging that agent that's inside the fire extinguisher. All right? That pin is supposed to be secured with a tamper seal so that the pin doesn't just come out on its own. You could be just carrying it like this, and sometimes people hold it and then they just accidentally squeeze it and shoot it off. So you have your pin and you have your tamper seal. The next thing you want to check is the hose. Make sure the hose is in good repair. We don't have major damage to it, no cracks, frames. Make sure that the hose is on nice and snug. Just kind of twist it in a clockwise manner. All right? Because if the hose is extremely loose and you go to fire this off, the hose will come off, and then instead of getting a good straight stream of the powder, it's just going to go everywhere. Also, while you're checking the hose, look inside this piece. We call this the horn. Look inside and make sure there's no obstructions that's going to prevent the powder from coming out when you discharge the agent. All right. Long time ago at another base I worked at, I've actually seen gum inside of this. So once you're doing that, look at the physical condition of the extinguisher itself. Make sure it has no dents, cracks, major damage, major corrosion. A lot of times you will find that after many years of this being outside in the exposed elements. But when you have extinguishers that are located outside, you're still supposed to be in some type of protective cabinet to keep it protected from the weather elements. All right. On a fire extinguisher, you should have a sticker right up here. This is the annual inspection sticker. Every year, this fire extinguisher has to be taken over to building 150. That's the extinguisher maintenance shop for its annual inspection. They do their inspection. If it passes, they put a new sticker back on and they give it back to whomever turned it in. Depending on how busy they are, and if you bring like 5 extinguishers at one time, they could probably get it done in about 15 minutes.
What if I own one at home? Where could I take it to be inspected or maybe serviced? Could I go to the local fire station or just get a whole brand new one?
I recommend that you contact the local fire department to see if they have a program that they can service it, but 9 times out of 10, from my past experience and what I've heard, that they don't, but there are outside companies, even the people that makes these fire extinguishers, Amerex, they may have companies locations nearby that they will do that. But because I don't go out and do home inspections, I can't really tell you what to do outside of my jurisdiction. Okay, because the local fire department may say something else. So I can't really give you any rock solid information other than contact your local fire department and see what they tell you.
Okay.
All right. So as a fire inspector, when I come out and do building, or when we go out and do building inspections, we're looking at the fire extinguishers to see that that sticker is there. So this one was done in January of 2020. If I was to inspect this fire station in March of 2021 and it still says January 2020, I'll write them up for it. And yes, I do write up my own people. I don't care. All right. Now this is a fairly new fire extinguisher. There are many different name brands of fire extinguisher. Amerex is the most common one we like to see on the base. But you have name brands called Buckeye, Ansel, Kitty. All right. The one good thing about the Amerex fire extinguisher is on this label right here, you see that little rectangular square, that makes sense. That rectangle, it's got 2019 in it.
Mm-hmm.
That is the year that this bottle was manufactured. If you have an extinguisher that is not an Amerex, what you do is you got to flip it upside down and look on the bottom. It's hard to see from a distance, but there's an actual stamp in there that says it was actually manufactured in January of 2019. So if your organization was to purchase new fire extinguishers, the first thing you want to do before putting them in service out in the facility is take them to Building 150 and get that sticker put on it first. All right? I go around and I don't see a sticker on it, that's a write-up. And if that says 2020 and you tell me, oh, I just bought this last week, doesn't matter. It has to have a sticker on it. Okay? One thing that you don't see on this right now, but you will eventually, is that not only does this have to be inspected every year, but every 6 years there's a maintenance requirement that has to be done in this fire extinguisher. A lot of detail stuff that I'm not even going to worry about telling you what it is, because you don't need to know what it is. Only that it has to be done. And it's done by the maintenance, the extinguisher maintenance shop. So in 2019, in 2025, the 6-year maintenance will be due for this. So when they take this bottle for its annual maintenance, its annual inspection in 2025, they should have the 6-year maintenance done to it as well. All right? They go there, they bring it, they don't do the maintenance. Of course, you have all year to get it done. But at some point, you're going to get to the point where 1 month you got to take it over there for the annual, and then you got to return it back, say, a few months later for the 6-year. It's best to have them done at the same time. And if you're the one that's bringing the extinguisher to them, and you know that it's due for the 6-year maintenance, that's where you step in and say, please do the 6-year maintenance also. So you don't have to be going back and forth at 2 different times a year. Okay? Or more than that, depending on how many fire extinguishers at and what the dates are. Now, 6 years from that is a hydrostatic test, which is done every 12 years. So they'll put a silver sticker on it. Folks, can you go out to the apparatus bay and look at that fire extinguisher and see if they have that silver 6-year, 12-year sticker on it?
Yeah.
And if it does, can you bring it here, please?
Yeah.
So those are the things that when we're doing our facility inspections that we're looking at to see that the facility managers or whoever's doing the inspections is actually doing it. It ain't nothing worse to go to do a building inspection and see that this is like 4 months old, past due. That's just ridiculous. Okay? So if you have a lot of extinguishers, the 10, 20, 50, or whatever, okay, there's different ways you can keep records of how you are, when you are inspecting the extinguishers monthly. If it's when it's hanging on the wall or inside of a cabinet, you can have like an Excel sheet kind of paper put in with it, put it in a document protector or something like that. And you can have on the rows, January, February, all the months, and then your columns identify them by years, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then whoever's doing the inspection on it can sit there and initial each block that syncs up the year and the month, so forth and so on. Or you can keep an electronic database. Anything that you can show us upon request that you're inspecting this monthly. Okay? So, this silver sticker right here, thank you. Okay, if you look kind of at the top of the sticker, it says 6-year maintenance, 12-year hydrostatic test. Well, you see that the box is punched out where it says 6-year maintenance, and it was done when?
This year?
Okay, it was punched 2019 in the month of December.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
so it's got 2019 punched. The years are here, and then the months are at the bottom. So 6 years from December of 2019 is when the hydrostatic tests will be due. 6 years from that, the 6-year maintenance. 6 years from that, the hydrostatic test. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, part of the hydrostatic test is the 6-year maintenance in addition to pressure test in the bottle. Henceforth, hydrostatic test. Back to the documentation part of your inspections. The Robins Air Force Base Instruction 32/2001 that I mentioned to you in the invites. There's a lot of information, mostly pretty much what I'm going to be covering here, that talks about the fire extinguishers. So if you happen to have, a memory lapse or something like that, revert to that. It's going to tell you about what to look for during inspections, when it's got to be taken over to building 150, which is dependent on when it was done, mounting height requirements, but if they're inside of cabinets, it's no big deal. If it's on a hook, on a wall, these extinguishers can't be no higher than 5 feet from the floor, and the bottom cannot be within 4 inches of the floor.
Dumb question.
No such thing as a dumb question.
Every building on base must have a fire extinguisher?
No. Back in 2016, there was a regulation that came out that said if the facility was sprinkler protected, it did not require fire extinguishers. So at that time, a study was done, and only certain facilities were identified to allow the organizations to remove the extinguishers out of the buildings. Only certain types of facilities. And what I mean by types, occupancy classifications. You have, what building do you work in?
936 EO office.
936. Is that across from the bowling alley?
It's close to it. It's on the same street, maybe like a building over.
Okay.
Across from MPF.
Okay. That's the building that does the Right Start briefings. Is it kind of tucked back off the corner?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. Building numbers are not as many buildings that are on this base. I can't recall every single building number.
Here's the light. Here's my building. MPF is right here, and if you keep going straight, it's the shop bed and the AFES and all that good stuff.
Okay, I have an idea. So, if that building is sprinkler protected, and that building is classified as a business occupancy, back then they said that the fire department authorized the removal of the fire extinguishers. However, it was still at the discretion of the organizational commander/director. And we've had some cases where those individuals, director or commander, said, I don't want to take them out, they're staying. And that's their prerogative. But if they stayed, they had to be maintained. All right? So there was a big list of buildings with all the building numbers that were identified, and that information got sent out to the organizations. Now, 6 months ago, that same regulation that said these extinguishers were not required in buildings with sprinkler systems, now they say that the fire extinguishers are required in accordance with the life safety code. So NFPA 101 is the life safety code, which is the kind of almost the hub of what we do as far as when we do building inspections and things that we're looking for. So your business occupancy facility that you work in, the life safety code says it has to have portable fire extinguishers in it. Whether it's sprinkled or not, it does not matter. But because somebody else many years ago said you can take your extinguishers out of your building. Now, somebody else that's a lot higher than me has got to make a decision. How are they going to go tell those people you got to put them back in? Not my pay grade. Way above my head. So, I don't know where they're at with that decision-making process. Once I find that out, the people that I normally have contact with as far as building inspections, I tell them. For the rest of the base, some kind of notification will get sent out through the commander chains and things like that. I don't know how the notifications are. So that's one little headache that we got coming down the line. You know, and you may have only, I'm guessing probably maybe built in that size, probably 5 extinguishers probably in there, if that.
I'll get back to you on that.
Well, I don't even know how many. But that's no problem. But when you're dealing with buildings like 300 and 301 that had probably like 50 extinguishers in it, and they was allowed to remove them, and they did, and maybe they just got rid of them completely. Maybe they played it safe and kept them in storage or something like that, just in case. I don't know. But if they got rid of them, guess what? They got to go buy 50 brand new fire extinguishers. And that's going to cost. Now, of course, the more fire extinguisher you buy, the cheaper it's going to be per cost per item.
Dumb question. You guys don't provide that. We have to order that through GSA or something like that?
That's an organizational purchase requirement.
Okay.
All right. So when you go and bring these fire extinguishers for their maintenance and their inspections, if by some chance the extinguisher failed the inspection or didn't pass the maintenance test, they're going to tell you you need to buy a new one, and they should give you a sheet of paper that says, here you go. Because there's so many different types of name brand fire extinguishers, the extinguisher maintenance shop only has parts to service the Amerex fire extinguishers. So if you had a Buckeye, an Ansel, a Kitty, or something like that, and you go there because they have to replace O-rings and things like that, well, if they don't have O-rings for the extinguisher that you brought them, they can't service it. Now, it's just up to your organization. Do you want to buy the Amerex and be able to have them service it when it's required? Or do you want to have to sit there and pay to buy a new fire extinguisher every 6 years when they tell you they can't service it?
Got it.
All right. That's an organizational decision, not from us. Only that these have to be maintained. Okay, so talked about what this is, what it means, what kind of classification of fires it can be used for, how to inspect, and what you're looking for when you do your monthly inspections of the fire extinguisher. Okay, so the use of the fire extinguisher. On the label, right here, it says instructions. It pretty much gives you a rundown on how to use the fire extinguisher. All right, but like you said before, if you can remember the acronym PASS, P-A-S-S, pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. That's how you do it. Now, the one thing that you have to keep in mind from inside of a building, all right, is that I'm going to say this computer station here is on fire. Okay, over there. And let's say that there's my exit door and there's my exit door. Those are the only 2 doors for this room. So you always want to make sure you have an exit behind you. If that was the only door out of this room, I would not try to put it out from right here. Because if I can't put it out and the fire gets a little more out of control, and then it blocks my only exit. So now I'm trapped inside the room. Kind of understand that? So always make sure you have an exit behind you. before you attempt to use a fire extinguisher to put out a fire. Also to keep in mind that this is only used for kind of small fires. If this room was totally engulfed in flames, don't waste your time and try to use a fire extinguisher to put it out, because you're not going to do it. And you don't want to put yourself in jeopardy by trying to do something that's not going to happen. All right? So we're talking small fires, maybe a trash can fire. Somebody illegally came in, smoked a cigarette and put it in a trash can and stuff like that. That's a long shot, but anything can happen. So you want to start approximately 8 to 10 feet away from the fire. Go through the process. Pull your pin. That's going to break the tamper seal. Aim, squeeze, and sweep side to side. Now, because you're such a distance away, the fire, you may be knocking the fire down, and it's going to get smaller and smaller. Then you can get closer and closer until you've extinguished the fire completely, or if you've exhausted all the contents of this bottle. It's been a long time since I straight shot a fire extinguisher, but normally, let's see if I can remember. I'm guessing if you sat there and hold this down continuously and shot it until nothing else came out, you're looking at approximately 30 seconds that it takes to empty this. And for 30 seconds, that fire is still going, drop this thing and hightail it out of there. Now, of course, you got a fire, it has to be reported. Even if you extinguished it, you still got to report that there was a fire. Because the firefighters, the professionals, need to come in there and do more thorough investigation to make sure that that fire did not get into a wall, didn't get into the ceilings, places that you can't see. All right? Buildings mostly have fire alarm systems. Have somebody activate the nearest pull station, those little red boxes by the exit doors, to activate the building fire alarm system so everybody knows that there's a problem and they need to get out. Okay? Also, phone notification, because there's no way of knowing that when that fire alarm in that building goes off, the transmitter that sends the signal to our dispatch center who monitors it may not be working at that specific time. There may be a flaw in the system. And that has happened, where fire alarms are going off in the building, but they're not receiving it here at the monitoring station. So that's why the phone call is extremely important. If you're calling from a desk phone, 911. All phones on the base are programmed that if they punch 911, it goes straight to our alarm center. If you're calling from a cell phone, the commercial number to use is area code 478-222-2900. That is just like dialing 911. So it's good advice for people to have that 222-2900 number programmed into their cell phones. You can label it Robins Air Force Base 911 or Base 911.
Because if we dial 911 from with here, it could waste maybe precious time when the 911 off base trying to connect to the one here, right?
If you call 911 from your cell phone, that's going to go direct to the county 911 system. So, again, if you have a memory lapse and you do happen to do that, and you get the county, make sure that you identify yourself as that you're calling from Robins Air Force Base. Tell them that you're in building, what was it, said 963?
936.
Okay, I was close, 936. Okay, tell them you're in building 936. They may transfer your calls to us so you can talk to us directly, or they may get your information and then they'll call us and tell us what you told them. But it's better for you to talk to us directly, because they may not ask you a question that these guys will. They don't know the base like these people do. they're going to ask you more detailed questions. Which side of the building you're on, especially if it's a large building,
Mm-hmm.
like 300, 301. Okay, so what it is, what you're looking for during inspections, how to use it, pulling the alarm, making the phone notification, inspected every month. Now going back to the inspection part, in the Robins Air Force Base Instruction 32-2001, there is a facility manager's monthly checklist. You're not a facility manager, you're just a safety rep. But if the facility manager has that which they're supposed to, according to that instruction, on that checklist it says that the monthly extinguishers have been checked for proper location, not obstructed, serviceability, and all those things. So if I went and inspected that building and I'm talking to the facility manager, let's hypothetically say it's Mr. Foltz over here, and I say, okay, can you show me the last 12 months of your facility manager monthly checklist? Because most of the buildings on this base only get inspected once a year. He shows them to me, I'm satisfied. But if he doesn't show it to me, but he says, oh, well, my safety guy has that information, and you can show me something, then that's cool. If you can't, then I can technically write up the building for it.
I was going to ask you that next, if I could help the facility manager let them know that information you're looking for. Out of curiosity, around what time frame do you inspect these or the buildings?
Each inspector is different because we don't have technically assigned buildings to inspect, with the exception of myself. I am the inspector that does the buildings that get inspected every 3 months. Those are the public assembly buildings. Those are the more hazardous buildings because you don't have people that just work there. You have people that come there from the outside. The BX, the commissary, bowling alley, Heritage Club, base restaurant, the gym, the chapel, the refuge. Locations where people that don't actually work there, that go to that place for some other reason, those are mostly considered public assembly buildings, and they have to get inspected every 3 months. Your building only gets inspected once a year because it's a business occupancy classification. So we have a spreadsheet that says what buildings are due to be inspected at what months. Inspectors are given what buildings they're going to be due, or they just select which ones they're going to do. I like to do the same ones I did the previous year because I kind of recall what the building was like. And especially if I wrote something up, then I know what to look for if it hasn't been fixed since I wrote it up. Okay? So the inspector will normally make contact who we have known to be who the facility manager is and say, hey, your building is coming up for an annual fire inspection. Let's arrange this. And just how I sent you that email invite for this training, that's how I will do with the facility managers. Make phone contact first to see when they're available to do the walkthrough with me for the inspection. Once that's been identified, I send them an email invite saying, okay, your building is going to be inspected on this date, starting at about this time. I go there, try to find the facility manager if I don't know who they are personally, and I say, okay, let's get started. Other people just show up at the building and do inspections. Right now, because of this COVID-19 thing, we are restricted on timeline of how much time we have to inspect buildings. So myself and him and another gentleman, we're the only 3 that are here out of this office. The other 3 guys, they're at home teleworking. Next week, they'll be here and we'll be home teleworking. So instead of having 4 weeks to do building inspections, we now only got 2 weeks. And then I don't have time, depending on the buildings, I don't have time to sit there and make arrangements on when to do the inspections, especially when 2 days out of the week, I'm in a response status.
And there's no way for me or someone to request, like, is there any way you have time to come check out our building or anything like that?
Outside of a normal inspection, you can request that at any time.
Okay.
Okay. But because the way this thing is, my suggestion would be, again, to contact Mr. Diaz, the supervisor, and let him assign somebody to do it. Because if you was to contact me directly, or attempt to contact me directly,
Block?
no.
Just kidding.
It's just that I'll either be teleworking, or I'm out doing building inspections. The required building inspections. I'll be running calls and stuff like that. So because of that restricted time of only being here for 2 weeks, and really only have, of those 2 weeks, only have 6 rock solid days to do building inspections, time is limited. Now, yes, I did a couple of building inspections yesterday, but they were pretty small buildings. And those are the ones that I do on a quarterly basis. I know the facility managers. I've been doing those buildings for 2 years. Okay? So those are the buildings I can just walk in, bam, 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 do my inspection, and then go, oh, hey, just want to let you know, I just got finished walking. Well, I'll tell them I'm there, but say, oh, if you want to come with me, you're more than happy to it, but I can do the inspection without you. And if I find anything, I'll come back and let you know verbally, and it will be followed up with a report. And if a report is issued, it goes to the facility manager. They have to do the corrective actions that is recommended by the inspector, and then it has to go up to the organizational commander/director for their signature. They have to sign the reports, not the facility managers. But yeah, we're here, for any fire safety related questions and assistance and everything like that. But again, because we're half and half, the timeline is a little iffy. We can do it. It can get done, but don't expect that if you call at 10 o'clock and expect us to be there at 11 o'clock. No. That's probably not going to happen because of things that are already scheduled or already in the works. And it's not just fire inspections that I personally have to worry about. There's a hood system program that I got to deal with, hydrant testings that I have to monitor, CDCs, I deal with them. Those are the buildings I got to deal with also. So there's a lot of other outside things that go on, just inspections. And then those other things that just happen to come up unexpectedly. A fire alarm system in a building is not working. And it's not going to be working for a while because of part issues. So now we got to do a report, put the building on fire watch, and do all this other paperwork and things like that. So that is pretty much about everything. The only thing that you will not find in the Robins Air Force Base Instruction 32/2001 is the placement of where you put fire extinguishers. Well, you got fire extinguishers there, so there shouldn't be a problem. But let's say your building is sprinklered and they had them removed because the fire department said it was okay to do it, and they did it. And then the fire department comes back and says, you got to put them back in. And you didn't remember where they was at initially. for Class A requirements, which is most probably the what would probably happen in a business occupancy setting, there should be a fire extinguisher within 75 feet. So if I travel 75 feet from where I'm at to any directions, I should be able to get to a fire extinguisher. That initially is what for a building that's being built brand new, they decide the placement of the fire extinguishers, 75 feet. If you had a hallway that was 150 feet long, if you had one at one end and one at the other, that's pretty much 75 feet, because if you went to the middle of the hallway, you want 75 feet that way, boom, extinguisher. 70 feet out there, boom, extinguisher. But then you have offices off their hallway, so those extinguishers may be a little more toward the center, because it's not more or less the 150 feet of that hallway, it's getting from that corner of the room to out into the hallway or something like that. And that's when you would request the technical expertise of a fire inspector. Say, can you come and help us identify location placement of these fire extinguishers, because we don't remember where they were at. Now, if you had fire extinguisher cabins in the building, put them in the cabins. But they might have been hanging on little brackets, wall-mounted brackets, and those brackets were removed, of course. That's where we can help out. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Sure.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
So every person that sees this, they owe me $5.
Okay.